This is a re-recording of the original workshop. So the recording on the 5th didn't get recorded, so this is a re-recording. So you may have noticed that the date on my chart is actually the 10th. That's why the dates are off a little bit. Our first question that we're going to start off with is about scaling in to a position. So with BlackBird, we now have the ability to keep adding in to your existing position. Keep throwing on more contracts. And so the question is, the questions come up again. Could I please demonstrate, how that is done? So, I have my chart already and set up here with some, you can see some BloodHound signals on it, and these are just a bunch of BloodHound signals, all in the same kind of direction to help me demonstrate how you would keep adding more positions every time you get a BloodHound signal. So let's say, for example, right, your long signals and your system, and the market goes into a down position, right? So you get your first, or a downtrend. So you get your first short signal here, right? So that's going to open up your first contract or open up your first position. And then, what's wanted is that when you get a second BloodHound signal, we want to open up one additional position or throw one extra contract on, and so on and so forth, right? So when you get a fourth BloodHound signal, again, add in or scale in another contract. So that's what this is going to be demonstrating here. All right, so let's get BlackBird up and running. Here we go. And I'm going to simply just create a market order here. And really what the question, or I should say the capability that handles scaling in, is the placement trigger option, right? So you'll see for entry orders, there's a placement trigger option, right? So this placement delay and placement trigger, these two options are only available to the entry order, right? So if I go and create a profit target here, open it up, right? You'll see there's no placement thing. So so getting back to the entry order, so I'll just create a simple market entry order, and what we're going to focus on is the placement trigger that's going to be used here. There's many different options here to create various conditions that allow you to create various kind of scaling in or adding new positions on, creating those various conditions that you might need or you might be using to determine when you want to add new contracts. So, but the most common is going to be either a BloodHound signal or a trade signal trigger. So in our case, because we're using BloodHound as our trade signals, we're just going to use the trade signal trigger. It sounds like we might use the BloodHound signal, but if we use the trade signal trigger, that is going to be a lot simpler, right? Now, but first, okay, the first contract is not going to use this placement trigger, right? The first contract, we want it to be placed immediately, right? So it's going to go in immediately. So actually, the first order, you just set it up, as either using your market or limit order, to set up your entry, your first contract, set up your entry the way you want, and just leave the placement trigger alone, right? So that's not necessary yet. So let me just create a couple of profit targets and stop losses first. All right, now the second order set, this is when we're going to use that placement trigger. So I'm just going to simply copy order A, All right, so order A, this is going to go in with our first BloodHound signal, right? And then order B will be the scaling in order here on the second BloodHound signal. So now this is when we want to use a placement trigger, because this is the scaling in order, right? So the order A opens the initial position, right? It's the opening order, the opening order that puts you either long or short, opens the position. Now order B is going to be the order that adds an additional contract or scales in, right? So this is where we actually want to use the trade signal trigger, right? Now, really, the default settings here are just fine for the first scaling in. We don't need to change anything, right? But let's take a moment to kind of explain what these options are. Mode here. So the mode refers to the signal, to the trade signal coming in. So in our case, we're going to be using BloodHound signals. Now, right, so typically, as you get additional signals in the same direction, right, so these are all short signals, so they're all signals in the same direction going short. So that's what in the same direction would be referring to. So in other words, this first short signal, right, that order A is going to open a short position. And then when we get our second short signal from BloodHound, right, that is a signal in the same direction. And it's going to be the first scaling in contract. If you notice, the name says signals after the first entry. So remember, A is our first entry, right? A is what opens the position, starts the short position, right? So this is going to be signals after the first entry. So it's going to be the first, basically think of it as the first scaling in contract, right? Our third BloodHound signal, well, that would be actually the second scaling in contract, right? So the first signal isn't scaling you in, it's opening the position, and every signal afterward is what's scaling you in. So so actually, let me get back to the mode here, right? So there's some various other options here. So just in case, either direction, that's kind of difficult to come up with a practical use for that, but you never know. Someone might need that. But possibly, something that might be used, really, really just every kind of option is available here. Whether someone will find practical use for it, that's up to you guys. But someone might have a system where they get a short signal, and then for some reason their BloodHound signal gives them a long signal right afterwards, and so they might be using an opposite trade signal, as they're scaling in. So probably not, for I'd say 99.9% of system builders, BloodHound system builders, they're probably going to end up with a system very much like this, where you just get repeated short signals in a row, or multiple long signals in a row. So I'd say 99% of the time, you're just going to leave this with in same direction there. So, all right, so that would be our second scaling in contract. Now, if we want to scale in a third time and fourth time, then simply we can just make a copy again. So now C, that's going to be our third contract. We just need to open up our entry order, open up our trade signal, and this time we're going to knock that up to 2, right? And again, if we want to add a fourth scaling in contract, Again, we can just copy C now, go in here, and modify our signals after first entry. So we'll just increment that. Excuse me. We'll just increment this one more time. Right? And basically, you just repeat the process over and over and over again for however many times you want to keep scaling in. Right? So there is no infinite scaling in option. Right? So with BlackBird, you are going to set a limit, which is good. You really do need to have limits in place because you don't want to exceed or you don't want to create a margin call with your broker, right? Most traders only have so much money in their brokerage account, which means they can only open so many contracts before they get a margin call. So, all right. So, knowing how much money is in your account, you can then figure out how many contracts your broker will allow you to open in any given day, right, before you get a margin call. So all right, so there you go. You can just keep adding more contracts as your account would allow for, right? So okay, so now the last part, basically I kind of got ahead of myself. Normally you would set up your trade signals first. So let's kind of go backward, take a step backwards, and let's implement our BloodHound signals, right? So it's basically, the signals that you see on the chart. I'm just going to add that BloodHound template to BlackBird here. So let's open up BloodHound, and I'm simply just using this test template here. It just has a bunch of different logic templates in it that generate a bunch of signals that are good for demonstration purposes. So, what we're seeing on the chart here is this price inflection or price reversal with a MACD filter. Right? So that's why the MACD is on here as well. All right, so this is the BloodHound template we're using. I'll just click OK there. Now our entry signal, let's set that up. So it's going to be the price inflection with MACD. And there we go. So now we have our trade signals plugged in. Right. So going back to, this trade signal option here, trade signal trigger, that is referring to your trade signals that you have set up here. Right. Now keep in mind, you can have multiple trade signals, set up, and I'm going to click on the entry order, and this trade signal option, a signal that comes from any of your trade signals that you have set up. This trade signal trigger, it's looking for any trade signal coming from anything that you have set up. Right? So you could even have, you could have three, for example, 3 BloodHound templates loaded in here. So you're getting, trade signals from 3 different BloodHound templates, 3 different sources. And, whichever BloodHound template fires off a trade signal, that's considered a trade signal, right? And this trade signal trigger just looks at, anything that you have set up, any signal coming from anything that you have set up in the trade signal area is considered a trade signal, right? There's no filtering them. So, if for example, you want your first BloodHound template to be the trade signal that opens the position, then what you can do is you can actually instead of using the trade signal trigger, I'm not going to go into depth on this, but that is when you would actually start using the BloodHound signal, because then you can actually specify what BloodHound template is actually going to be used for scaling in or adding more contracts, right? So that way you can get very specific. So that way all three, signal, setups here aren't being used to scaling in. You can create a very specific BloodHound template that actually provides your scaling in trade signals. Right. So, so if you do want more detail, you would use a BloodHound signal to control, which BloodHound template and which BloodHound logic template determines, which of these contracts, scale in, based on a very specific BloodHound logic template. So, let me put this back here. There we go. All right, make sure the number is correct. So remember, B is actually number 1, C is number 2, and if we check D here, D is number 3. There. All right, so let me get rid of these other trade signals. There. Okay, so we should be all set up and ready to go. We'll just click OK, and let's see where we're at here. All right, so basically the MACD is above the 0 line, so that means we're going to be getting long signals from this point on out. And so whenever, the way this simple BloodHound system works is that when price reverses down and then reverses back up again, you get a signal in that reversal up when the MACD is above the 0 line. Right? Very, very simplistic kind of idea, but it generates a lot of signals. That's it's good for demonstrating ideas here. So, and actually, before we get started here, I'm going to remove BloodHound off my chart, and I'm going to have BlackBird put BloodHound on the chart. So to do that, I just need to refresh the chart. There. And now we can see BloodHound is on the chart again, but it's from BlackBird, right? If you see the name here, it says BlackBird. So that tells us that this is BloodHound running through BlackBird and being placed on the chart. And the other thing you want to remember to do is, right, if you look at these signals, they don't look correct, right? That's because the wrong logic template is selected here, right? So you'll notice the text is blue, right? So this, our BloodHound button right here, you'll notice that text is blue. So the blue text tells you that this is BloodHound running inside of BlackBird, right? If the text is black, well, that's BloodHound running on the chart as an indicator, right? As its own separate indicator. But when BloodHound is running inside of BlackBird and being placed on the chart, you'll see the text becomes blue. Sorry. So let's go select our logic template here, right? So there we go. There's our trade signals again. Okay, so there we go. We got our chart all set up now. So let me force a trade signal. Oh, and don't forget to turn on the auto trader. There we go. Auto trader's on now. All right, so we're just gonna wait for the market to come down and create a down bar, a reversal down in price, and then I can create another reversal up in price. There we go. Actually, that took a little too long, so I'm going to make another down bar here. There we go. Now I'll reverse price up. All right, there we go. There's our first first contract there. All right, so now my profit targets here actually aren't they're a little too tight here to allow more scaling in, so I should have adjusted my profit targets, but I'll just do it manually. There, I'm just going to manually pull the chart down and get these profit targets way out of the way there. That way the market can keep moving up and keep adding on more contracts. There we go. Let's put that one up there. So we can see here on the market info panel that we have 2 contracts, and we can also see on the order flag there that we have 2 contracts. So 2 contracts long. It's a number 2 inside of a green. All right, so let me move the market up again. Okay, so now is when we get our next, when this up bar closes, we'll get a 3rd contract. So let's just kind of mark things here. So remember, that was our first signal. That's our second signal there. Let's move that guy out of the way. There, I'll move the market down again. There was our 3rd. All right, move the market up again, and we'll get our last and 4th contract moving in here. I'll slow it down a little bit, and let me. It's too bad I didn't have the plot executions turned on, so let me turn those on. There we go. Oh, and look at that. Yeah, be mindful of that. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes NinjaTrader will reset BlackBird. You know, it'll reset your whole chart and reset your strategies, and you'll lose everything. So you gotta be mindful of that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. There's doesn't seem to be any logic to it. So let's let's walk through this again here. All right, so I'm just going to pull the market down a little bit, and let's turn the auto trader on again. So when the chart reset, it turned our auto trader off. So in the auto trader enabled button, that turns off automatically because of, just as a reminder here, just because of this setting here, right? Start auto enabled on, that is turned off. So that means the auto trader button starts in a disabled state. So, all right, I think that's good enough. We'll move the market up and start scaling in some more contracts here. There we go. And again, let me kind of move my profit targets out of the way. All right, so now we can see our text and executions here. And let me make one more adjustment, and this one hopefully will not reset the chart. There we go. Okay, good. And we missed it there. So we had our second contract scaling in. That happened pretty quickly, didn't it? All right, let me pull the market down. All right, move the market back up. So we're looking for our 3rd contract here, or our 2nd scaled in contract. So let's kind of mark these. So that was our first signal that opened the position. There's our 2nd contract, or our first scaling contract. And we're going to get a 3rd contract right there, or our 2nd contract, 2nd scale-in position. Let's move that out of the way. Stretch these out. And there we go. There's our 4th contract. All right. Now, I'm just going to demonstrate, if we do get additional signals, no additional contracts are going to be added in, right? So let me just pull these. Let me pull this stop loss out of the way. There we go. So let me open up BlackBird real quick here, right? Just to remind us, right? We only have 4 contracts, or we only have 4 order sets created here, right? For 4 separate contracts. So this is the limit of what BlackBird will, this is the limit to the number of positions BlackBird's going to open up. All right, so we got a down bar. Let me move the market up, and we'll create another long signal, right? Just to demonstrate, and no more additional contracts are added, right? So there we go. There was no execution there. So, okay. So that concludes this demonstration here, this question. So let's just do a quick recap. So in order for the scaling in to work, you do need trade signals set up right in the trade signal section here. So it could either be a BloodHound signal, or of course, you have the option to use a third-party indicator that provides trade signals, right? So, and the first contract, you just set up, the contract type. Is it a market? Is it a limit? A stop entry? Whatever you want. And the placement options here are left alone. Just leave them on their default, right? There's no placement options are being used for the first contract, which opens the position, right, on the first on your first trade signal. Now it's your second order, third and fourth, and so forth. Right? These are going to be the order sets that scale in. So this is where you would use a placement trigger, right? That's where you would use the trade signal trigger here. So, and of course, if you want, you don't have to use market orders. You could set this to a limit order if you want, and hopefully the market will pull back enough, and fill your limit order. So scaling in, you can use any order type, that you deem fit for your system. All right, so you're not restricted to a market order. I just used market orders for the sake of simplicity and making sure that the demonstration went well. So, but of course, use any kind of entry order type that is suitable for your system. So, all right, so there we go. That concludes that question. So, all right, so give me a moment and we'll start the next question. All right, our next question is a continuation from the previous day's BloodHound workshop. So a set of signals were created in yesterday's BloodHound workshop, and we're now going to take those signals and plug them into BlackBird, and then create, we'll set up an entry order that's going to trail or follow, excuse me, follow the Donchian channel here. So, and actually I'm going to take a moment and adjust the look of this. There we go. So we can see the Donchian channel is kind of stepping up, right? So the Donchian channel is just tracking the highest high and the lowest low of the last 5 bars, right? So this is the Donchian channel with a 5 period. And we also have an EMA 20 on here. The EMA 20 is simply being used as our trend filter, right? Very simplistic trend filter. So, but if you want, if you want to understand more about this, take a look and watch the previous day's BloodHound workshop. So let's see here. Let me open up BlackBird and We're going to start with the BloodHound signal here. So what I'm going to do is open up yesterday's BloodHound workshop template like this. So yesterday we built 3 different 5-bar pullback signals here, with different options. So one is a 1-tick pullback. Well, it's 1 tick from the Donchian Channel, or 2 ticks from the Donchian Channel, and then there's another system here, which is basically waits for a bar to close in the direction of the trend. So this quick summary there. All right, so let's click OK, and let's plug in our signal. So we're actually gonna, I'm just gonna build a BlackBird order set that's going to use the 2-tick pullback to the Donchian Channel. So in other words, actually so what I'm going to do is refresh the chart so that we get the new BloodHound template loaded. Right? If you noticed, right, the strategy is remembering the old BloodHound logic template in there, so you have to refresh the chart to get NinjaTrader to load up, all the current components here. So click yes, and so there we go. So there's the BloodHound workshop from the other day, and let's go select the logic template that we're using here. All right, now the way the BloodHound signals were set up is that we were actually getting a signal when price makes a pullback, right, to within 2 ticks of the Donchian Channel, right? So the EMA is sloping up, so that's telling us we're in an uptrend, and we're waiting for the Donchian Channel to pull back, basically to pull back. Let me get a little line here. Yeah, to pull back to within 2 ticks. All right, so as soon as price pulls back to a 2-tick offset from the lower Donchian Channel, that's our pullback, and we get a BloodHound signal. Now, BlackBird's capability actually doesn't quite need a signal like this. The signal would actually come in a little too late. What we actually want is an entry order sitting there waiting to be picked up, right? So really all that BlackBird needs to know is the trend direction. So based on our trend direction, then BlackBird can place a limit order either at the bottom of the Donchian Channel, right, waiting for a pullback to get picked up to go long, or if the trend is down, right, we can see the EMA starting to roll over, then BlackBird, well, the way the system works, then BlackBird would place a limit order at the upper Donchian Channel here, waiting for price to pull back to go short, right, go short with the EMA. So we're actually going to modify this signal here a little bit. So let's open up BloodHound. And, right, so, the way the BloodHound signal was written, it was really written to work with Raven, right? So, Raven doesn't have all that, right? Raven's a very simplistic backtesting kind of free strategy that comes with BloodHound, but with BlackBird's more advanced capabilities, all that BlackBird needs to know is the trend direction. So we're going to make this simple modification here, And we can see now when the EMA is pointed up, sloping up, right? Basically, that's telling us we're in a long trend, you know, and it rolls down, we're in a downtrend. So really, for this pullback system, you know, this pullback system just needs to know the trend direction and then either place an entry order, you know, at the bottom of the Donchian channel or at the top of the Donchian channel. So, all right, so simple modification here. Let's close that out. All right, and let me neutralize the trend there. Okay, so now that we have basically BloodHound feeding the trend direction to BlackBird, we can now build our order sets here. So actually, you know, so the signals that were built in yesterday's BloodHound workshop was actually a overkill for what BlackBird needs, you know, but it was necessary for Raven. So, all right, so let's open up BlackBird and let's start building our order set here. So, you know, this is a pullback system, so we're going to use a limit order, right? Pullbacks are typically you're waiting for the market to pull back and fill, you know, and fill a limit order. So we're going to plug a limit order in there, and now, you know, where do we want this limit order sitting? Well, if we're in a short trend, we want the limit order sitting 2 ticks below the upper Donchian channel. If we're in a long trend, we want the limit order sitting 2 ticks above the lower Donchian channel. So let's go change our initial placement here. So we don't want to use price. We don't want to use bar prices, right? We actually want to use an indicator value. So we want to set our limit order at the upper or lower Donchian channel. So there's our default indicator, so let's replace that, SMA. And there's the Donchian channel. All right, and remember, we're just using a 5 period. And so we're using the lower channel for long signals, right? We want a pullback, which pull back down to the lower channel for long signals. And so the upper channel is going to be used for short signals, just like so. Remember, we want a 2-tick offset. So for a long signal, we're taking the lower Donchian channel, and we want our limit order sitting 2 ticks above, right? Positive 2 ticks. So we want this to be a positive 2. And for a short signal, we want -2 because we want the limit order 2 ticks below the upper channel, right? We're taking the upper channel and going 2 ticks below it for a short trade, right? So basically we can see the market's in a downtrend and we're waiting for this a pullback, which will be a move up to the upper channel to fill an order to go short then. So, all right. So simple enough. Our profit target, you know, again, that was just kind of arbitrary, but in yesterday's BloodHound workshop, it was just decided to use a 1 ATR, right, a 1 ATR period, like so. So the 1 ATR adjusts to the size of the bars, right? And actually, yeah, yesterday's workshop, we were using an 8 range chart. So I will adjust this chart here to an 8 range. And that will effectively, a 1 ATR means an 8-tick profit target, right? Since this is an 8 range chart, 1 ATR would be 8 ticks, the same size as the bars. So, now the stop loss, what was decided is that the stop loss would be sitting, 2 or 3 ticks below the Donchian Channel. So what we're going to do is use, where is it? There we go, the parabolic SAR. Right, so the parabolic SAR, that's an indicator. So that's going to set, right, the stop loss at the parabolic SAR indicator. And the reason why we're going to use this is because we can simply go in here and just replace the parabolic SAR. Right, so the mode is already set to indicator value for us. So it just kind of, you know, a little time saver there. And so now we just need to replace that parabolic SAR with the Donchian channel. There we go. Again, let's set it to a 5 period. So again, for a long trade, we're using the lower channel. So we want our stop loss below the lower channel for a long trade. If we're in a short trade, we want the stop loss above the upper channel. So there we go. So there's our Donchian channel indicator set in. And next step is to set our offset. So let's just set this to a 3 tick for this example. So that's going to set it 3 ticks below the Donchian channel there. All right. Now this first this first order is just a simple, you know, I mean, this is arbitrary. Of course, you can adjust your profit targets and stop loss, but you know what was suggested yesterday by Julie was just a 1 ATR, and the stop loss was just going to be fixed. So no trailing with that stop loss, right? This is you probably kind of are getting the idea that this is kind of like a scalping system, right? It's not a big trend following system. It is very similar to kind of a scalping system. So, all right. So there's the first order. So let's see. Let's click OK. And there's a few more things that need to be adjusted. So one of the things is what was mentioned yesterday is that, you know, this was a system that was to run with the there we go, the calculate on bar close set to false. So what I'm going to do is turn BlackBird off. We're going to disable it, hit apply, and we're going to change the calculate on bar close to false. So that way it's running on the current bar, and then we'll re-enable the strategy like so. All right. Now we also so that the indicators on the chart are synchronizing with BlackBird, we also need to set our indicators so that calculate on bar close is also set to false, like so. And let's do the same thing for the EMA. All right, should be good to go. All right, so we can see that what this did, oops, I put that in the wrong panel there. Let me minimize this MACD again. All right, so changing that calculate on bar close setting, you know what we did is we can see now that the Donchian channel and our EMA are plotting on the bar that's building, right? Normally your indicators only plot on the bar that's closed. So now we're actually operating on the bar that's building here. So let's see here. We do have a pullback here. So let me turn it on. Now you can see instantly our limit order is sitting right there 2 ticks below the Donchian channel. Now let me move the market up so that, oh, actually there's one more thing I wanted to do. I had mentioned, so before I get going too far, I want to change this to an 8 range chart so that we're using the same chart that we did yesterday in the BloodHound workshop. Okay, there we go, 8 range chart. Okay, so let's turn this on. There we go, there's our order sitting up there. So that's a short limit order, right? A sell limit order sitting 2 ticks below the Donchian channel. So let me move the market up and we'll try and get this filled. Alright, one more tick it looks like. There we go. Okay, so let me move the trend down and let's take a look. So our stop loss, bingo, our stop loss is, let's see, the stop loss is 2 ticks above. Let's see, I might have, remember I thought I had set it to 3 ticks here. Let's see what happened. 3 ticks. 5, 3 ticks. And let's see. Make sure I have everything set up correctly. Let's see. Yeah, that does look correct. That looks correct. Let's see. All right, displacement 0. Yeah, well, shoot, it looks like BlackBird got the wrong price data for the Donchian channel. So let's try this again. All right, so as soon as this bar closes, we'll get another order set up here. Let's see, yeah, let's go ahead and close this bar up. There we go. All right, so we have another limit order, and let's keep moving the market up to get that filled. And we'll take a look at the orders again. All right, one more tick, we're almost there. There we go. And there we go. All right. Now BlackBird's being given the correct indicator value from Ninja. So, okay, good deal. All right, stop loss is in the right spot. And our profit target, well, that's a 1 ATR. So that's roughly going to be 8 ticks. Let's see. Is it 8 ticks? Yes. Our ATR is 8 ticks. There we go. So, you know, the way this kind of system works is, you know, you're looking for a pullback, you know, to the Donchian channel, and then for the trend to resume itself and go down, just like so. There we go. So, all right, let me, I'm going to move the trend up. So, we'll get this EMA to roll up and start taking some long trades. And while that's happening, we're going to add one more signal. We're going to add a scale-in signal here. So actually, let me just give a brief explanation. So let's see. Actually, let's take a look at the BloodHound logic templates here, right? So there was a third logic template here that generated a signal when the bar closes. So what we're looking for is actually for the bar to close up or for the bar to close down. So since we're in a short trend here, actually what we're looking for is, right, so we're looking for price to make this pullback to the Donchian channel like so. And let me turn off BlackBird there for a moment. All right, so we're looking for, right, price to make this pullback, right, and fill that limit order, and then if it closes down, then that's a confirmation, right, that hopefully the market is going to resume the downtrend. And so when we get a down bar closure, when we get a bar closing down in a downtrend, that's our signal for adding one additional contract, for adding a second contract, right? So, and if we, let's scroll back here. Let's say, let me find a spot. Here we go. Here's a perfect example. So, right here, right, we can see we're in an uptrend, right? We're getting green signals here out of BloodHound, right? So the market's moving up, then we get our little pullback, and we can see the market comes down, pulls back to the lower channel that would have picked up that limit order, and then the bar closed up, right? So basically confirming that the market is resuming the uptrend. So when we get this pullback and a bar closing in the direction of the trend, so in other words, we're in an uptrend, so we get an up bar, that is our second signal there. And actually, if we, let's set this, there we go. Yeah, so we can just change the logic template that we're seeing on the chart here, and bingo, perfect right there. So let's take a look at some other examples. There we go, another good example right there. So our EMA is in a downtrend, price pulled back, and then the bar closed down. Right, perfect. So this signal here is going to be used to add a secondary scaled in contract. So, all right, let's see, getting back to where our chart is. So let's get BlackBird open. Now this secondary contract it's just going to be a market entry, right? So when that bar closes in the correct direction, what was suggested by the customer Julie was just just submit a market order. So again, you can change all these order types to fit your style of trading. So we're using a market order, and we're going to use the placement trigger, right? Because this is a scaling in contract. So what we're going to use this time is we're going to use a BloodHound signal here. So we can't use the trade signal trigger. And I'll explain why in just a moment. We actually have to use the BloodHound signal this time. So let's set up our BloodHound template so we can see there's on our quick list here. We'll just use the workshop one, right? So that's the BloodHound template we're using. Now our logic template. Now remember to initiate the first, pullback entry, right? That is using this logic template here, this one in the middle, this 5-bar 2-tick pullback with trend. We are going to use this logic template here, this third one down, right? Because it's looking for the bar to close. So, actually, one thing I noticed This says COBC true, but remember we're running BlackBird with calculate on bar close equals false. So let's make a quick adjustment here. Yeah, I don't really recommend doing this, but you know, when you do make edits like this on the fly, it's always good to refresh the chart and, you know, test things out first. Make sure everything's working correctly, because you know, while for the most part making changes to your BloodHound signal inside of BlackBird, for the most part it does work. But remember, these are kind of things that NinjaTrader never really considered would ever take place on their platform. So you know, so there could be some hidden snafus that might occur when you do this. So just, you know, just be mindful of that and be careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the BloodHound interface, and I'm going to make a quick change here. A quick edit here. Right, so I'm taking this 5 bar, you know, 2-tick pullback, and bar close, and so this logic is built to function correctly when calculate on bar close equals true. So since we have BlackBird running with calculate on bar close equals false, we need to make a slight modification to our BloodHound logic. So what I'm going to do is make a copy. Right, I can use the copy button here, and we can see it. Right, we made a copy. So let's just delete that, and let's change the name to false. All right, now keep in mind I'm doing this on the fly, so the BloodHound template that you will have downloaded will not include this logic template. You're going to have to make it along with me, right? So so we just simply change the name so that it says calculate on bar close false. So let's kind of take a look here, right? So we have this one here, 5 bar and bar close with COBC true, and this one, right, and bar close, COBC false. And the way you can kind of a workaround to kind of like this is kind of a workaround to make your BloodHound logic templates function as if they are running as calculate on bar close true. You know, even though you may have BlackBird or Raven running with calculate on bar close false, the way that you can effectively make this logic template function as if it is calculate on bar close true, what you can do is you can add a look back, right? So effectively what this look back does is the bar has to close before the signal occurs. So this look back using a displacement of 1 is kind of the workaround to getting this logic template to function as if calculate on bar close equals true, right? Even though BlackBird is running with calculate on bar close set to false. So there we go. We just add that look back. Click OK, and now in our logic template here, there's our new logic template. So that's the one we want to use. And that's it. Right, so we're looking for signals. We're looking for BloodHound signals in the same direction. Right, in other words, in the same direction as the trend here. So so we don't need to change anything else here. So all All right, so there we go. We're just going to submit a market order when we get that BloodHound signal. And let's see. Yeah, yesterday it was talked about that this would be a runner. So there's no profit target. And so instead, we're going to set a trailing stop loss. So let's go take a trailing stop loss. And again, let's just use the parabolic SAR to kind of do some pre-setups, and then we're going to replace the parabolic SAR with the Donchian channel, right? The Donchian channel that we have on our chart. So we'll select parabolic SAR under trailing, and now we just need to go through and replace this parabolic SAR with our Donchian channel. So click the configure button. Let's go down to the D's here. There we go. There's our Donchian channel. And remember, we're using a 5 period, so let's make that adjustment. And now we need to select the correct plots. So for long, we're using the lower. For short, we're using the upper channel, like so. And let's remember the offsets. So I guess for this runner, you can set whatever offset you want there, right? I guess I'll just match the other stop loss here. It uses a 3 tick. I'll just stay consistent here. All right, so that's the initial placement. Now for the trailing, all right, to get our stop loss to kind of trail up, we need to go into the trailing actions tab. Let's open this up a little wider here. Let's remember, let's change the name here just for our sake. So, all right, so we're just going to trail the Donchian channel. And the only thing we need to adjust is the action, right? You'll see the action says move to the parabolic SAR. Well, so let's replace this parabolic SAR, replace that with the Donchian channel, just like we did just a moment ago. There it is. Add it down there. Again, change the period. Select the correct plots for long and for short. And again, don't forget to set the offsets. There we go. 3. And let's see, repeat indefinitely. Yeah, that's already set for us. All right, that's all we had to do. It's just replace the parabolic SAR with the Donchian channel. So there we go. So now we have a trailing stop loss that's going to trail our Donchian channel here. So, all right. So we have the first order, and B would be our runner. If you want to, we could rename this, call it the runner. Makes sense, right? All right. So let's click OK, and let's give this a shot. Okay, we definitely have a good long trend established. So let's enable the auto trader. There we go. Our entry order is sitting right there. And let's pull the market back. I'll just pull the market straight down. And we'll get that first order picked up. And I'll just scale the chart out a little bit. And almost something. Let's see here. Something isn't following here. Let's see what I might have done. I might have made some accidental change. Let's see here. Let me close that out. And let's take. Yeah. You know what I forgot to do? Sorry, guys. It was a good catch. So remember, our limit order was supposed to follow the Donchian channel, right? Well, all I set up was the initial placement. So we need to set up trailing rolls here so that our entry order follows the Donchian channel. So let's add a trailing roll, and let's give this a name here. gonna follow the Donchian channel. Let's pull this out, open a little bit. So there's no delay. We want our limit order to follow the Donchian channel, immediately. There's no triggering mechanism either. We're just gonna basically just start moving that order. We want that order to start, moving and following the Donchian channel. So we're going to change the move to an indicator, right? The Donchian indicator, and hit the configure button. And again, this whole system is all based on kind of the Donchian channel logic here. So again, let's change the period to 5 and set our plots correctly. Select them, and again, remember we're setting it 2 ticks above the Donchian channel. Of course, again, this is arbitrary. You may want 1 tick, you may want 3 ticks. This is all adjustable, right? All right, allowed movement both directions. Right, so if we're in a short, you want your limit order to start moving down. If we're in a long, if we're in a long, you would want the limit order to move up or down with the Donchian channel. So. The last thing to do is set our repeat. We want our limit order to move indefinitely. So every time a bar closes, right, we want the limit order to adjust to the Donchian channel. So, all right, there we go. So we got that corrected. Now let's click OK. And let's see here. We got a nice deep pullback here. So let me move the market up here. Let me get the market back into an uptrend, and then I'll create a pullback. All right. Now that we have the market pulled away from the lower channel, I'll turn BlackBird back on. I'll enable it. Enable the auto trader. There we go. Our entry order is sitting right there, 2 ticks above the Donchian channel. Okay, so now let me create that pullback here. Let's pull the market down. And there we go. Now we can see our limit order is now following the lower Donchian channel as it was intended, as it should have been. There. All right, we got that fill. And let's see here. Yeah, now let's move the market up. Now remember that runner is going to kick in if this bar closes up. Right? If this bar closes up, that runner will kick in. So we'll just force this bar to close upward. And it actually might fill. No, yeah. So it filled. Well, so we got here. Let's kind of slow this down a little bit. Scale this up here. So if we look at the text, right, we had 2 things happen very quickly here. Right, we had a buy market, right, for our runner, because we can see our stop loss here. But then at the same time, the profit target got hit. So we can see that actually we got a market fill at the same price as the profit target getting hit. Right, you can see the prices are the same, 64.60 there. So, and because the profit target of the first contract is 1 ATR, the way this was set up for this example, typically your profit target's going to get hit at the same time your runner gets filled into the market, So, but of course you can go in and adjust your profit targets to whatever you find suitable. And so I'm just gonna move the market up, and let's just we'll just verify that this stop loss is trailing the Donchian channel as we want it to. All right, we can see our Donchian channel is sitting right there in blue. All right, it hasn't moved yet. So for the last 3 bars, the Donchian channel hasn't moved yet. Hasn't moved higher. I think it's going to take one more bar before the Donchian channel starts stepping up. There we go. Now our Donchian channel stepped up, and so did our stop loss. All right, we'll just watch this one more time. There we go. All right. So now let's set up an example where we get a pullback, but the market keeps pushing down, right? And so whereas it doesn't really kind of become the pullback we want, but let's say market keeps pushing down like we did, like we can see over here on the chart, right? Let's see what happens when that occurs. Okay, so I've got the trend of the market pulled down, and as soon as this bar closes, BlackBird will submit another entry order. Now BlackBird is waiting for the bar to close because of one of the settings here. So while we're waiting for the market to pull down, let me just take a quick moment to show you that setting here. So under options, we have this allow re-entry on same bar. So effectively what that means is that, you know, if you get an entry order or a fill or something on a bar, you got to wait for it to close before before a re-entry order or something like that gets submitted again. You know, so if we wanted a limit order to be submitted as soon as the profit target got filled on this bar, and then we wanted BlackBird to submit a limit order down here on the same bar, we could just check that, turn that on, right? So, but let's just leave it like this for now. And okay, so right now the market is pretty close to this pullback and filling that limit order. So let me just pull the market down a little faster. All right, so there's our first order, right? Order A. And so let's test to see what happens if order A, you know, gets stopped out. So there you go, stopped out, like so. And there you go, another order filled. Let's say it gets stopped out again. We'll get that stop out. And then let's say the market reverses. Right? So what's going to happen if the market reverses? Now remember, this is an up bar. Right? This is an up bar here. So let's take a look at that signal. There you go. Right? So that's our second signal. Right? So yeah, so we can see our runner kicked in. So and also order A is sitting there as well. All right, so order A is sitting there waiting for a pullback to get back into the market. Now, the reason why order A is sitting out there again, because remember, order A is based on this logic template that we're looking at, right? And so when there's an uptrend, right, every bar has a long signal. When we're in an uptrend, right, every bar has an entry signal. So order A is always going to try and get back in to the market. You know, basically the entry order is always going to be there. So, and as the Donchian channel, you know, steps up and our stop loss steps up, order A, our first order here, it's also going to step up with the Donchian channel as well. So let's just let the market move up, and we'll watch these two step up together. Right, there we go. So the runner and the entry order, they're both stepping up, and in step with the Donchian Channel. We'll just let one more bar close here. There we go. Entry order, runner, stop loss, entry order, moving up with that Donchian Channel. So, yeah. All right. So that basically is it. If we pulled the market down, if we did get a market like pullback, and it hits our limit order, if it hits order A, then we're going to be 2 contracts long. And basically the way this is created, it just, repeats itself over and over and over again. All right, there we go. So we just got that that order A filled there. And the hopes is after that pullback, the market will turn back around and continue the trend, right? So, all right. Well, that concludes this question. So let's just kind of take a quick review here. All right, so our first order A, is right. It's a limit order. It's a limit order sitting, sitting and follows the Donchian Channel, right? Waiting for that pullback to get filled. The profit target and stop loss, those are just arbitrary. Of course, those can be, those can always be adjusted as you see fit. Basically order A is, it's being submitted based off of this BloodHound signal. And remember, so we actually took this pullback, signal and we modified it. So let's open up BloodHound here. And yes, this is the one that we modified. Let's open this up a little bit more. Right, so we modified this signal. So instead of actually getting signals only on the bar where the pullback occurs, we're just looking at the slope of the EMA, so that way BlackBird can always have a limit order sitting on the Donchian Channel ready to go. Right. So and the second part that we did is we added a runner, and this runner was tied to a specific BloodHound logic template. So again, our main trade signal is based on the 5-bar 2-tick pullback with trend and COBC faults. Now this runner, it enters on a different BloodHound signal. So if we go to the placement trigger, right, so it's the same BloodHound template, right, it's our workshop template, but the logic template is different, right? So remember, we built this new logic template, which is the 2-tick pullback and bar close, and we built a new one so that it would operate as expected with COBC equals false. There we go. And then our stop loss here for the runner, we designed our stop loss with some trailing rules, right? If you remember, the the first contract, order A, there are no trailing rules here. Of course, you can add trailing rules, if you want to do that, but with that profit target set so close, probably trailing rules, the way the profit target is set now, trailing rules doesn't make much sense, right? So, but of course, if you adjust your profit target, then maybe trailing rules would make more sense. So, all right. So with that, let's save this, and there we go. That's here it is, the 5-bar pullback with runner. We'll save that like so. Just to get again. This is a re-recording of the original workshop, so the recording on the 5th didn't get recorded, so this is a re-recording. So you may have noticed that the date on my chart is actually the 10th. That's why the dates are off a little bit. So, okay, well, that concludes this workshop. So, all right, thank you.